Okay, it's time I made the sequel to the Sportster Autopsy video. I'm going to call this one, but wait, there's more. So let's see, where do I start? Here's that oil pump, and I was bitching about silicone. It's all through this thing. They weren't cheap with the silicone, it's everywhere. Okay. Same thing here. There's that bushing arrangement with the shim stock and the JB weld and stuff. Okay, so here's the gear that drives the oil pump. It's not supposed to look like that. It's screwed. Okay, now I've got the engine out. I've got the cases split. I've made some important discoveries once I got to that point. Quite a bit of sludge there. So the crankshaft had a whole bunch of end play. It's supposed to have about 1 thou, maybe 2, but it had a whole bunch more. And it was grinding away at the inside of the case. That's the Torrington bearing, that is the right-hand main. There's your 4 cam bearings. They're needle bearings. Okay, this case is damaged. I'm worried about the integrity of that cast-in steel insert that supports that Torrington bearing. But let's move on. There's more. Okay, here's the left case. There's been an extensive amount of welding done on this thing in the past. This hole here is supposed to be a dowel that locates the primary cover. It's not even a round hole anymore. I see a helicoil down in the bottom of that hole too. So there's evidence here of primary chain damage. The primary chain is stretched beyond its lifespan. There's another weld job there. You can see all the silicone and all the gasket material. Several of these holes are compromised. Here's what happens when you use silicone, and you use lots of it. It gets in these holes, and then the guy working on it runs them screws in there, but there's silicone in the bottom of the hole, which doesn't compress. So it blows out the case. This is why these are all welded. You can see there's another one. There's another weld right there. There you can see that. So these cases are in really rough shape. I don't even think they should be used again. Also, this Timken bearing was put together wrong, and this is a steel casting insert in the left crankcase that supports the left main bearing. This bore is all distorted and beat to hell. There's no way that seal is going to stay in there. It just fell right out. But the hole is all beat up. And the edge of it is all worn over. So this case, I'm going to condemn this case because I don't think I can save it. Okay, so here's the sprocket shaft that runs through that bearing bore. There's the outer bearing right there. That's the inner bearing. You can see that this spline is badly damaged. You can see how there's a step hammered into all of these splines. Also, the end of this thing is all hammered. And this hole, which is supposed to be on center, isn't on center anymore because it's been smashed with a hammer. So that shaft is no good. This is the pinion side. You can see that bearing race is all beat up because it's moved over about a 1/2 inch from where it's supposed to be, and that's what tore up that oil pump gear. That's the oil pump gear there, and that is what tore that thing up. I've got the heads apart. We already showed you the damage on this rear piston and the big grooves in the bore. But these valves, somebody's put some oversized, some different springs in here, and the collars are all beat to hell. I don't even think they're the right collars for this application. I should also mention that at some point, this thing's been hot rodded. I think those springs are a clue because they're aluminum collars. Inside here, you can see where somebody's ground away at that bearing support area to put in bigger cams. So this is a 77 engine, and you can't put a very big cam in it without having to make some room. The cams that were in this before aren't in it now. It's got stock P cams in it, so at some point somebody's put hot rod cams in here and ground the shit out of these cases. The bearing, or the bushing that lives in this hole, was loose. It fell right out. That's the one that's on the other side of the idler gear, on the other side of that mess. There's a multitude of other issues with this thing, and the bad news is, here's a shifter shaft that looks like it's been broken in half and re-welded. It's not even straight. The bad news is, though, that this is going to be super expensive to fix. I don't think the cases are usable at all. The flywheels definitely need both shafts changed, which means they've got to come apart. We need cylinders. And the list is long of stuff that this thing needs to bring it back from the dead. So I'm going to have to end this video on a sad note that this engine is pretty much toast.